How's it all? So I'm standing here in some degraded thicket next to some spekboom clumps. It's quite a landscape, quite unbelievable. This should all be dense thicket like that over there. And I suppose you can see the fence line contrast there. That's not a geological divide or anything like that. There's a fence line that runs there, and all of that is degraded thicket. I reckon spekboom and spekboom felt and all the other species associated with that, the dense kind of coverage of dwarf forest, should run from there all the way to those mountains. Maybe with a few areas that localized areas where the soils aren't appropriate. And just give you a view around here of this landscape. We shouldn't be seeing any bare soil. You can see the trees are dying because they lose the soil around their root masses and they fall over. But what I want to chat about today is something I've discussed before, and that is herbivory and herbivory exposure. So if we look along the edge here, we can see that there are all these red stems are this season's growth. So since the last rain, probably in see, the rain here was in December, January, February with some good rains, and then a little bit over the winter, but not much. So this is this year's growth. That's where you're seeing the red stems. What I want to see here is, do you see they're all bitten off? All bitten. There's bitten off. And you can see they're all being bitten off. All along here. Everything along this line has been bitten off. And you can see how that's now hemming in the spekboom, because what it's really wanting to do is to work its magic by growing outwards and trapping leaf litter layer. Just look at what's happening under there. Look what's going on over here. Absolutely nothing. Barren moonscape. That's a mesenbryanthemum over there that just pops in. It's an annual. Whenever there's some rain, it comes and it disappears again. But what spekboom is trying to do is creep along the ground, trap this leaf litter layer and going on here, but it's struggling to do that because it keeps on being munched at the side, and there are hooves that are going up and down here. And that's primarily driven by Dacre and Steenbok to some degree. And then we've got, it looks like impala, and which are extralimitals in this area, which means they shouldn't be occurring in thicket. There are some impala here, but they'll be munching at a slightly higher level. So there we go, we've got bites over there. And then we've got kudu, who like to browse from about 1/2 meter to 2 meters. And there's some kudu browsing pressure here, but not much. But what I really want to show you is we've got bites all along here. But the moment you go in a tiny bit, there's no evidence of browsing. Oh wait, I say that, there's one bite over there. Come on, focus please. There's a bite there, okay. But the further we go in, the less evidence there is of any browsing. And this is in a kind of landscape that receives quite a substantial amount of browsing, or used to historically, but now isn't. Yeah, there's certainly less browsing on the landscape now. And so there's a lot of this growth, and it's very, very impressive growth, and it's all happening on the inside. And if you think of what Stuart Hall in 1992 argued, that the main way that spekboom grows is not necessarily upright, but creeping sideways. And so these bush clumps that we see all around here, they're the remnants after the kind of great clearing by domestic herbivores. These remnants should be expanding. They should be reclaiming all this open space, but they're not. And that's because there still are herbivores on the landscape, very small herbivores, being Dacre, which are keeping these spekboom hemmed in. Why are there Dacre on the landscape still? An unusual amount of Dacre? Well, Dacre feed in open landscapes. They preferentially feed in open landscapes. They're called an ecotonal species. they'll go in the day and kind of hide in the thicket, but they won't actually preferentially go and browse in the thicket. So, you know, for example, we go and look here. There's no spekboom. Oh, there was a lizard that went and hid in the spekboom. Can I sneak up on him? Look. Ah, beauty. So he's out and was out in the open. The moment there was danger, went for go and hide in the speck. Yeah, because once you're in there, you're safe. It adds all this additional functionality to the landscape. Hello there, you. Let's see how close I can get. Where are you going to head off to? Oh, what a beaut. Ah, there he goes. Ah, what lizard? Gone. Yeah. Whereas if he was out here, you'd have to go hide under there, and I'd be able to see him pretty much anywhere under there because there's not much area to hide. Anyway, so these clumps of remaining spekboom should be going out, expanding sideways, but they're not. Now just think about all those red stems that I just showed you, and here's a clump that is now exposed. You know, it's got browsing on all sides. You can see this kind of browse line that's happening here, where all those red stems, they've all been munched away. There's that, there are bite marks, you know, tons of bite marks all over the place, even to the top. So the kudu are also getting in here, and where, you know, there were really lots of tall red stems in that patch that I just showed you, and nothing when spekboom is isolated like this. And it's just because it can't protect itself from herbivory. And why, when I say protect itself, what it does, it creates a fearscape where herbivores can't see very far. They don't like going into those kind of landscapes. So here, this is a nice easy thing to see. They can browse all the way around us, or browse all the way around this, and they can see for miles, see if there's anything sneaking up on them. Whereas, let's go back up to this side up here. If they want to get in, even if you're a small daker or a small herbivore, if you want to get in here, and let's get down to like the height of an impala, this is what they'd be seeing all the way around them. It's pretty much a closed scape, and I mean, look at how long these things are growing. Look at that. Geez, I can't even fit it in the picture, it's so long. That's 1 year's worth of growth, and that's what should be growing sideways. That's what should be growing out this way. We should be getting about 50 centimeters of growth and expanding all the way across here. So even though when we're doing spekboom restoration, we need to keep this in mind, that this kind of dense canopy cover is really important for creating a fearscape for herbivores, so that they don't go into this and browse when you do introduce herbivores back on the landscape. And then we got to be able to manage the herbivores in such a way that spekboom can actually still skirt outwards, because it becomes a real problem as soon as your spekboom gets the clump size is really small. Look at it. Then we start to get fewer and fewer red branches. Although here's a slightly bigger clump. Okay, so this is a bigger clump than the one that I just showed you over there, and we can see that there are a few more red stems growing there, about 1 meter in. Not as many. They're still quite short. But there are a couple that are growing in here. But when we come to like this tiny little one, I mean, shame. It's not going anywhere. It's not going sideways. It's not going up. It's really, really struggling, being completely bonsaied. And so there's definitely a minimum area we need to be thinking about when it comes to planting spekboom. That firstly, I think we have to be able to get to a point where we create this kind of fearscape where the animals aren't so happy to move in amongst the vegetation browsing, or if they won't sit in or stand in a specific area and just carry on browsing, that they'll feel they won't feel safe, so they'll carry on moving on, and then you won't get this like continuous browsing that just carries on happening. Anyway, that's just some thoughts from the field about herbivory and spekboom, and how maybe we really need to be aiming for creating these dense patches on the landscape, or when we're doing spekboom restoration, we need to really aim for a high density to get the fearscape going, as well as all the other benefits that I've spoken about in other videos. Planting you know, one over here and one over there and one over there and one over there, you're just setting it up for failure, because it's going to suffer the fate of this one, because the fearscape isn't going to be sufficiently generated. Anyway, cool, hope that's interesting. Leaving you with some money shots of degraded thicket. Now, really hope we seem to be like children on this planet, trying to figure out how things work by breaking them. I just really hope that we are learning the skills on how to fix it again, you know, break things and try to put them back together. I think spekboom restoration, we certainly might be learning how to put this ecosystem back together. It's not a straightforward business. It's not just planting plants in the ground. You've got to be thinking on, now what I've spoken about in this video, you've got to be thinking about herbivores. There are also a whole lot more of factors that need to be included. Alrighty, cool, cheers, that's me out.